Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to analyze the last few rapid games that I played on Lichess. For those of you that don't know, one of the last things I do each evening before going to bed is play a rapid game on Lichess, and usually because it's so late, I don't analyze them right afterwards. I just save them up for videos like this one. Ideally, each game would have 1 point that I can learn from, 1 point that I lost the advantage or that my opponent gave it to me when I won, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the advantage creeps away from you or creeps into your favor, and it's a little harder to determine what went wrong or what went right. And I have a feeling that last night's game is not going to be the ideal one either, because I remember my opponent took less than 40 seconds to checkmate me in 20 moves, and I felt like I was behind the entire time. But hopefully we can still learn something from it. I have just run the little game review here. Oh no, it said I had 8 blunders. 8 blunders in 20 moves? Oh, 22 moves. Okay. And my opponent had 6 blunders. Okay, the graph looks kind of up and down. Right through here, we made a bunch of mistakes back and forth, and then at the end, I gave it away. I just know that I was thrown off balance when my opponent began, playing like it was a blitz game or bullet game, I guess. They, like I said, they used less than 40 seconds to make 20 moves. So it could have been a bullet game from their end. I ended up playing pretty quickly too. I think I just got drawn into it. But anyway, let's see what we can learn. The first few moves were relatively normal. We played an English opening, but then once we got here, I think it's a Caro-Kann defense now. And I'm going to check the opening book. Yeah, now it's the Caro-Kann defense. So what should I have done here to keep it the English? Oh, I shouldn't have played e5, okay. Here I should have played knight to c3, and it says they would have played e6, but I'm pretty sure they would have played here. I was just trying to prevent them from playing here, which is why I played e4, but yeah, now it's the Caro-Kann defense accelerated Panov attack. Well, that's probably where I went wrong. I almost never do this in the English since I've been playing it, and I probably should have stuck with what I knew, which at this point would have been to, play knight to c3 instead of the e4. But anyway, we're in the Caro-Kann defense now, and we took all these pieces and we're dead even after 4 moves. My opponent played their best move and I played my best move. And of course, they should go ahead and take this. I have played the Caro-Kann defense hundreds of times. I know from Black's perspective here, that would be the next obvious move, because if I take back, the queen's going to get my knight. But I probably wouldn't take back. If they took there, I would just go ahead and put my d pawn up. And then if they took my knight, I'd be okay. But instead, my opponent played e5 here. And notice they've spent less than 3 seconds and they've played 5 moves. I remember thinking for just a brief second that I should take that, but I wasn't sure. The engine thinks I should go ahead and check. They would block with the bishop and then I would take it. No, it says I wouldn't take it. Okay, the engine thinks I should check. They would block with the bishop and then I would just come back here to defend this pawn. But since their bishop wouldn't be needed to guard against my check anymore, then they would put it over here pointed at my queen. And it says I would not play this pawn up to block the bishop from pointing at my queen. This is another case where Stockfish is recommending things that I don't understand. I just went ahead and got this knight out here, but that wasn't recommended. But the engine thinks I have an advantage here if I'll play one of those 2 bishop moves, bishop to c4 or bishop to b5 check. And we're about to get to the point where it goes up and down pretty sharply. I think in hindsight, that actually makes a lot of sense. Not the check, because like I said, they would block and then it would want me to pull back here anyway. So why not just go here first and save us the trouble, and they'll go ahead and put this over here. And it says then I would play knight g to e2, which actually does make sense. But I played knight g to e2 first, and as soon as I did it, I realized, wait, now how am I going to get the bishop out? But now my opponent should go ahead and take this pawn, but they didn't. They put the bishop over here, which was weird. Not that I knew that that's what the engine wanted. Had I played my correct move, if I had put my bishop on, one of these squares, we would end up in this position, just in the reverse order. And even though Stockfish said I wouldn't do this if we did it in the correct order, I went ahead and did it here, and it turned out to be my best move. And they have to move the bishop back, and I'm supposed to go over here to immediately threaten the bishop again. And then it's going to go back to its home square. That makes sense, and it would let my bishop out. Okay, I understand where I messed up here. I was thinking of a way to get this bishop out, and I pushed my g-pawn so I could put my bishop behind it. But I should not have done that, because it allows them to take this pawn. Wait, they were going to take that pawn anyway. What? Okay, well, I don't understand that. All right. I thought this was a mistake because of what they played next, which the computer thought was a blunder, but I thought, oh wait, they're not going to castle. They're going to shoot pawns forward, and I've already weakened my structure here a little bit, and I should play d4 now. Okay. Well, the reason I moved my g-pawn was so I could get this bishop out, so I did that. That's a blunder, and now my opponent can take this pawn. But it's a free pawn. It's been a free pawn the whole time. I don't know why that's such a big deal for them, or they can get this bishop out. But instead they got that bishop out a little bit too far. But see, at the time I thought that was a good move. It keeps me from castling, which was my whole idea for moving this knight and this bishop. Now I can't castle. Now I have to play d5, it says. Or sorry, d4. again. Well, here I do understand d4. I think I would have more pieces hitting that spot than they would. I mean, the same amount, which for me is good, right? If they take, I'm going to take. And then I'm threatening their bishop, and their bishop's not preventing me from castling anymore. And my queen's protecting it. Okay, well, I do understand that now. But I went the slow way. I played a3, hoping to play, b4 to hit that bishop. And a3 is a blunder because they can castle or take this pawn. Well, again, I'm not worried about that pawn. I thought it was lost already, and my opponent blundered by playing a6. And I should have played d4 again. But b4 was my second best move. I think this is the first time in this game I played my second best move. I did that to get rid of that bishop, and it should have gone back, and it did. Okay, so we're even now. We're even after 11 moves. And again, I should play d4. Or put my queen on b3. I still can't castle, and that was frustrating here. But I can get my other bishop off the back rank, so I did that. But that's a mistake because they can castle or play knight b to d7, which is what they played. And now I need to play knight to e4. And it says if I played knight to e4, they would not take, they would castle. But I'm pretty sure this opponent would probably have taken, because, they have two pieces aimed there. Probably with the knight, and then when I took back, they would have just dropped the bishop back someplace. But I don't understand why that's a good move. I also don't understand why I thought what I played was a good move, which was d3. But at least it's not saying d4 this time. I think maybe what I was looking at here was, trying to keep their bishop from pointing this way so I could move my queen if I needed to. Maybe, but that's what I played. Or maybe I was thinking of putting the knight there and giving it, some defense. But that's really bad because they can play knight to b6, which aims at this pawn that they could have taken the whole time. They didn't know that, so they put the queen there, and this looks really dangerous. They're still ahead, even though that was counted as a mistake, but that's because those things are lined up, and I have to do something about it. Apparently, that is why I put the pawn there, because I did play knight to e4, but that's a huge blunder because they can just take it with the bishop. They took it with the knight, which isn't horrible, and my best move is to take back, and now they're supposed to check me here. Well, I wasn't worried about that because I would just get out. Oh, I guess then they would get the bishop. Nope. What? Okay. Oh, come on, Stockfish. Sorry, yeah, I probably shouldn't have even started looking at this game. But it says they would check. I would get out of check, which I think would be my only legal move, and they would not take my bishop. They would take this pawn with their bishop, and I would take back, and then they would take my bishop. Instead, they moved their bishop to safety, which is kind of what I thought they would do, but they did it really quickly. Look at that. They've still only spent 23 seconds for 15 moves, and I did see that they could move in here, so I thought maybe put a rook here. That turns out to be my best move, so I feel pretty good about that. They should castle kingside or queenside. Those are their two best moves, but instead they played h4, and Stockfish says I should just leave these two pawns looking at each other and put my bishop on h3, and they would play f5. Well, if I put my bishop there, I would not expect them to play f5. Sorry. And also, what, am I aiming at the knight? Apparently not. It says after they play f5, I would put my queen on b3. Okay, but I played g4. I thought that would be the best way to avoid any problems with that pawn, but that's a blunder. Sorry, no, that's just a mistake because they can play h3. Well, I wasn't worried about h3 because my bishop has a place to go. But h3 is their best move, and I have to go to h1. Why didn't I go to h1? Oh my. Okay, well, here I know what went wrong. I should have just moved it to h1. I didn't realize that they were ahead here other than this imminent threat of checkmate, but I don't know why I took it. I took, which is my second best move, but clearly a blunder because they're going to be able to, to do this and then get my bishop. Okay, well, I did that, and their best move is to just go to g6 or g8. Oh, I thought their best move would be to, to take out some of my pawns here, but it's not. That was actually counted as a blunder, but they did what I thought they might do, which is go here. And of course I take it, and then they get my bishop, and I have to play rook to c1 or d6. What would d6 do? Well, I went after their rook with my knight, which is a blunder according to this. Okay, so that's a blunder because they can check me right here. Oh, wow, and then I would have to block with either the knight or the queen. It says I would block with the queen, and then they would take this pawn. Well, that's probably why I would block with the knight then. Okay, but they took the pawn first, which for them was just as good. And now I need to play queen to b3, I guess, to guard against that. Oh, it says they would do it anyway. So no, it wouldn't be guarding against that. So why would I play it? It says they would go here anyway, and then I would take, and they would take with the bishop, well, of course, and then I would just be way behind. Well, I went after the rook again, which gives them a mate into. They should have checked right here, which I would have had to have blocked with the queen, and that would have been checkmate. But instead, they just went there with their rook, and I can play queen to d3. Oh, they can just take my free bishop. Oh, wow. But I took the rook, which allowed mate in 1, and they checkmated me. All right, well, that was frustrating. I just spent 18 minutes and learned nothing. Well, the night before last, I won this game, and according to the graph, it says there was one point at which my opponent got a big advantage. Looks like I must have made 2 mistakes or blunders in a row, but then they gave me the winning advantage over here. So let's just go to those points right here. I played, what did I play? I played e4, but somehow e4 gave them a big advantage. Okay, maybe f3? Maybe something else entirely. I don't know. I do know that in a lot of situations when, they've put a bishop here to trade for the one that I have fianchettoed, Stockfish says, no, you shouldn't take it. You should let them take you. But I thought here I could just push that up a little bit. And then what are they going to do? Go back? Okay, well, let's see. Oh, it says I should have taken. Well, like I said, usually the engine tells me not to do this and let them take me. But here it says I should have taken them. They would have taken with the rook. And I would have played knight to c3, and they would have brought the rook back. Not all the way, though, because they probably want to double at some point. So why would I threaten it then? I don't know. But this is a mistake because it allows them to pull this back. But I thought I was forcing them to pull it back, not allowing it. But apparently, oh, that's their only move. But yeah, of course it's their only move. That's why I thought e4 was a good idea. But they pull that back, and now I need to play b4 or f4. Well, if you've been around here any length of time, you know that I don't play f4 that often because whenever I do, it's a mistake. But as you see, whenever I don't, it's a mistake too. So I need to come up with a little list of like a cheat sheet of sorts, not for actual cheating, but just a list of all the moves that Stockfish always tells me to do that when I actually do them, it's a mistake, but when I don't do them, I should have. And that's the f4, or if I'm black, f5. That's putting rooks on certain files that I never understand. Sometimes it's playing the H or the A pawns, and sometimes it's putting the knight on G4 or G5. And this right here is why, if you can afford it and have one available, you should probably hire a chess coach. Because I'm sitting here without a chess coach, and the only person helping me is not a person, it's Stockfish, and it can't tell me why those are good ideas. So I'm very often lost. Well, I did play knight to c3, which earlier the engine said I should have probably played, but now it's a blunder, and it's a blunder because they can play knight to d4. But that's their only move. I'm guessing that's a good spot for their knight because I don't have an E or a C pawn anymore. It threatens my queen, forcing it to move, so I assume I would just drop back. No, it says I would drop back in line with the rook. Well, I wouldn't, probably. If they played this right now, I would probably drop straight back. Oh, but if I did, then they would get that pawn. Okay, so I would have to come back this way to keep guarding my B pawn, which is probably why I should have played B4 on the previous turn. Well, I think I figured that part out. I still don't understand f4 because it looks like they would just start chopping stuff up over there and I would be in trouble. But my opponent didn't know that that was a good idea. So that's the blunder. Remember a couple of moves ago, that's where Stockfish wanted their rook, but now it's no good. If I play knight to d5, which I did, and I think I didn't because it looked like they were about to double rooks and come through here, and this stops that. I mean, they can take it, but I'll take back, and then, my bishop will still be guarding that pawn. They're supposed to slide their queen in here now, or back here. They did the thing with the queen because I was attacking it, so that makes sense. But now we're about even. I need to play bishop to c3. What? Sorry, what does bishop to c3 do? Or rook a to c1? Well, here's an instance of where I picked the wrong file to put my rook. I thought I needed to put my rook here to protect the bishop because my queen won't be able to stay there. Was that? Okay, that was a little bad, but not horrible. You know what? Let's just go over here. What did my opponent play that gave me the winning advantage for good? They should have played bishop to f8 or rook to c8. Well, I don't know what either one of those do, so I guess my opponent didn't know either. I know that they're probably frustrated by this pawn, and the problem is, I can move it. Oh, that's what rook to c8 does. Okay, well, I don't understand bishop to f8, but I do understand moving the rook. Why is bishop to f8 their best move? Wouldn't I still push this pawn forward? Nope. Why? Why wouldn't I push this pawn forward? Because they would move over, and then I would take here. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I can see this, but not the bishop to f8. But I can see moving the rook because my bishop's pointed at it, and I can move this pawn at any time. Instead, my opponent made the worst possible move. I don't think they could have come up with a worse move in this position. They put their queen here, which I was about to move this pawn, and it's going to attack the queen, while also my bishop is attacking their rook. Like backing up, can you think of a worse possible move? I guess they could have put it right here. I guess that would have been worse. But that's pretty bad because of this. And I did see it. And so they had to move the queen, and I took the rook for the bishop, and I'm up just +4. Which I didn't maintain for the whole way. We went all the way down to +2 here, but I ended up winning. I ended up winning here because they put their queen there where I could just take it, and then when they take back, I'm going to check them. The only legal move they have now is bishop f8, which, you know, would have come in handy a lot earlier when the engine said to play it, but then their king was over here. But now when they put the bishop there, I'm just going to take it. So they resigned here. I guess they saw they had to block, I was going to take, then they'd have to get out of check, and I would have 2 rooks for their 1 rook. And those rooks would have to navigate between a bunch of pawns, which could probably get tricky, but I have 2 of them, so anyway, I really don't have time for it, but I'm going to look at one more game here because I feel like I didn't learn anything from these 2. And the game from the night before that, I probably won't learn anything from either. We agreed to a draw. Neither one of us made a mistake or a blunder in this entire game. You can see the graph was really close to even. We had a couple of inaccuracies right through here, but we both just played really well. My opponent played with 95% accuracy, and I played with 95% accuracy. 10 average centipawn loss, 11 average centipawn loss, and we ended up in this position which I don't think either one of us was going to be able to break through. The engine thinks they have a very slight advantage, and I'm guessing that's because they have a knight. Like, my bishop literally cannot get through here at all. One thing I've got that they don't is I have a passed pawn. So they have to keep their king and their knight pretty close to that, but I also can't move it because they can capture it. But I think they probably could have figured out a way to get their knight through there. I don't know if it would have helped, but they might have been able to do it. For example, you could get a knight to, to one of these squares here somehow, but we could probably figure it out because I can't get through and I'm not going to move this pawn as long as their king's there. So let's just say that, I just shuffle my bishop and king back and forth. They can put their knight here on e1, then bring it up to d3, then put it back on f2, and from there they can go to h1 and then to g3, and from there they're aiming at either one of these 2 squares they could put a knight on, and they've gotten past my pawns. As you see, it would have taken several moves, but I literally cannot do that with my bishop. They can do it with their knight, so maybe that's why they have a very slight advantage. I don't know. We both played really well in this game, so good for us. And the final game that I will look at in this video, hopefully I can learn something here, was from, the night before that. And in this one, I made one mistake, and it was right here. It was not capitalizing on my opponent's blunder. My opponent made 2 blunders. One, I made a mistake, then they made a blunder, and I won. Okay, well, let's go down here. In this position, my opponent should have played queen to d7, or h6, or rook to c8. h6 disappeared, but it was one of the ones listed for a second. Those are the moves that they should have played. But instead they played knight to g4, which the engine is constantly telling me to play. Or knight to g5. It depends on which color you're playing and where the pieces are. But knight to g4, knight to g5, the engine is constantly telling us to play those. Now I do understand the queen to d7 because I have found out that the engine is constantly telling people to play the queen here behind the bishop so the bishop can come over here. It wants me to trade. I don't know why, but they always want to do this and I take back. So I guess I get that because it's just so common. I have opponents do that all the time, but also the engine is constantly telling us to do this, so I don't know why it's bad. It's only bad if I play b5, but I can play other moves and still be a little ahead. But b5's the best one. Why though? Won't they just move the knight? Yes, of course they would. And then I would play knight to f4, but I played knight to f4 now, and that was a mistake. I thought that was good. It attacks the bishop. Also, if they ever try to, to do the thing I was talking about over here on h3, well, my knight on f4 is guarding h3, but now that's a problem because they can just put this knight back. Okay, or they can retract the bishop to d7, but that's not nearly as good. But if they just put this knight back, I don't have that big of a lead. But instead, my opponent realized I had quit guarding this pawn when I moved my knight to f4, so nothing's guarding this pawn. So they took it, but that was a blunder. Well, I will just say that the reason that I moved this here was because I was getting out of the way of my queen. My queen can't take the knight while the bishop's guarding it, but this knight's going to take the bishop, and then I'm going to get the knight. But what my opponent saw was that I quit guarding my d-pawn, so they took it, and that allows me to take this and then the knight. So I took the bishop, and their best move is actually to go back and take the knight with the knight, but they can also take with the pawn, and then I get their g4 knight, which I did, and then my opponent resigned right there. Okay, so I don't understand why knight to f4 was bad, but it is apparently bad because of this. And okay, I think I understand the b4 thing now. Okay, because I didn't want them to also get this pawn. That's why I want to play b4 now. So when they move the knight away, then I play this, and we have the whole scenario that just played out, except they don't get my pawn. And whenever I move my c knight, then my bishop would be pointed at that. I think I understand b5 first, but I don't understand why this was bad. It just wasn't as good. Now, if they had done their best move, which is to bring this back, It says I could have just protected this by putting the bishop on e3, or I could have just played rook to e1, and they definitely would not have taken that pawn. Well, not if I had put my bishop on e3, they wouldn't take that pawn, but if I moved my rook over here, why wouldn't they take the pawn? Oh, they can, but then I'll just put this bishop back here on c1, and then they'll put the knight over there. I don't know. I'm glad it worked out the way that it did, because when they took the pawn, like I said, I had my path set out for me, and I wasn't as worried about that pawn because I was pretty sure I was going to get a free knight, and of course I did. I didn't know I was up +4 though, because I'm only up a bishop for a pawn, so that should be +2. But somehow I'm up +4. I am aimed at this, but they're just going to move it back. No, it says they're going to defend it. They're going to defend it or put it over here. I think they should have kept playing. I very well could have lost this game too. If you have any insight into any of these positions, especially the ones that I said I didn't understand, I would love to have that insight in the comments. Not just for me, but for anyone else who might be watching these and looking at the comments. Let me know if you're talking about, first game, second game, and so on. I'll have timestamps in the description. Or just let me know what you're doing to get better at chess. I appreciate it. I appreciate you spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.